What traditions broke my family? My name is Marcus. I'm going to tell you how one family decision destroyed 3 generations of people. My grandfather, Joseph, came to America in 1962 with nothing. He was a carpenter from Poland. Through sheer determination, he built a successful construction company. It became the largest in our county. My father, David, grew up watching his father sacrifice everything, even his health. Grandfather had his first heart attack at 42, but kept working. My father promised his father he would take over the company and keep it alive. He kept that promise. He expanded it massively. We weren't just comfortable, we had respect, status, security, everything my grandfather dreamed of. Then my father had a daughter, my sister Catherine. When Catherine was 14, she told my father she wanted to be an artist. She wanted to go to art school in California. My father's response was devastating. He said she was throwing away her life, being selfish. He told her if she left, he would cut her off completely. No contact, nothing. Catherine left anyway. My father removed her from our lives. All her photos came off the walls. For 6 years, she was a ghost. My mother secretly called her and sent money, but to my father, she didn't exist. Catherine didn't become the successful artist she dreamed of. She became a waitress in Los Angeles, barely surviving, completely broken by her father's rejection. She would call my mother crying, asking if he would ever forgive her. My mother kept those calls secret. During those 6 years, my father focused all his attention on me. He said I would run the company since Catherine had made her choice. By age 12, I could read blueprints better than most adults. My childhood wasn't childhood, it was training for a life I never chose. When I was 16, I met Sophie. She was brilliant, going to be a doctor, going to change the world. Being with her made me ask the question I'd never allowed myself to ask. What do I actually want? I realized I didn't want to run a construction company. I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to create something new, something mine. When I told my father, something inside him broke. He didn't yell. He said something worse. So Catherine was right. This family is full of selfish people who don't understand sacrifice. Then my mother did something that destroyed everything. She told my father the truth about Catherine. She showed him the letters Catherine had written, 6 years of letters where she begged for forgiveness, where she said she'd made a terrible mistake, where she said she was so alone and broken. She told him Catherine was suffering because of his rejection. My father read those letters. He had a stroke, a massive one. He was 61 years old. He survived, but barely. Half his face was paralyzed. He couldn't speak clearly. He was trapped inside his own body, unable to communicate, and suddenly he understood what he'd done to my sister. Catherine came home immediately. She sat with him for hours, and this powerful man who'd controlled our entire family couldn't even tell his daughter he was sorry. 2 months later, Catherine attempted suicide. She survived, but she spent 3 months in a psychiatric hospital. I was 17 years old, watching my entire world collapse. My father needed constant care. My mother was drowning in guilt. My sister was broken. And everyone looked at me like I was supposed to fix it, supposed to hold everything together. So I lied. I told my father I would run the company. I told him I would do what he wanted. I made him feel like his sacrifice had meant something. I sacrificed my dreams to save my father's life. Not literally, but symbolically. I went to business school instead of architecture school. I took over the company at 23. I was miserable every single day, but my father died thinking he had won. He died thinking I had accepted the family legacy and would carry it on forever. He died 3 years later from a second stroke. He never knew I resented him. He never knew that every day was a prison. My sister never fully recovered. She's still on medication for depression. She barely paints. She carries guilt about my father's stroke for the rest of her life, even though it wasn't her fault. My mother died of cancer 10 years ago. In her final weeks, she kept apologizing. I'm sorry I didn't protect you better. I'm sorry I let your father control all of us. 10 years after my father's death, I sold the company. I couldn't do it anymore. The thing my grandfather built, the thing my father sacrificed his life for, it meant nothing to me. It was just a weight. The company was bought by a corporation. Within 5 years, it didn't exist anymore. 4 generations of work, gone. But I don't even care. I think I should care, but I don't. What I care about is that my sister spent years in therapy because of expectations that were never hers. What I care about is that my father died angry, never understanding that love isn't about forcing people into boxes. What I care about is that my mother died carrying guilt that wasn't hers to carry. What I care about is that I wasted 15 years of my life managing a business I hated. If my father had just said to Catherine when she was 14, "That's wonderful, let's support your dream." If he had said to me, "I want you to be happy, that matters more than any company," maybe Catherine would still paint. Maybe she wouldn't have spent years alone and broken. Maybe my father wouldn't have had a stroke. Maybe my mother wouldn't have died carrying that guilt. Maybe I would have designed beautiful buildings instead of managing contracts for a company I never wanted. The tradition we broke wasn't about refusing to take over a business. It was the belief that family means sacrificing everything for expectations that were never yours. It was the idea that love is conditional on obedience. And breaking that tradition cost us everything. My father never understood that sometimes the